My name is Brenna Calloway, and I'm 34 years old. If you'd asked me a couple of months ago to describe my life, I would have called it steady. Not glamorous, not tragic, just solid in a way that made sense to me. I worked as a project manager for a mid-sized construction firm. Spreadsheets, timelines, building permits, endless emails about concrete pours and inspection dates. It wasn't the kind of job that impressed people at cocktail parties, but it paid well, and I was good at it. At home, my life ran on the kind of quiet systems most people never see. My budget spreadsheet updated every Sunday at 5 p.m., color-coded, formulas locked. Auto drafts hit the right accounts on the right days. The dishwasher kicked on at 12:01 a.m. to catch off-peak power rates. It sounds silly, but those little routines were my ballast. As long as everything balanced, I felt like I did too. And for the last 4 years, I'd had something else I thought was steady: my relationship with Liam Patterson. Liam worked in PR for a tech company. He was charming in the way people who live half their lives on social media tend to be, quick with a joke, good in photos, instinctively aware of how things looked. When we met at a friend's rooftop party, he made fun of the warm Prosecco. I snorted, laughed, and somehow by the end of the night we were sharing an Uber and an inside joke. Within 3 months, his toothbrush lived at my place. Within 2 years, we were looking at engagement rings. 6 months ago, he proposed. On paper, we made sense. We traveled sometimes, talked about kids someday, split rent on a nice but not ridiculous apartment. His friends always seemed friendly enough when we went out with them. Designer sneakers, big watches, endless talk about promotions and stock options. They'd make comments like, "power couple," when we arrived together, and I'd smile even though I knew between the two of us, my job was the forgettable one. Every once in a while, one of them would ask what I did and follow it up with, "Oh, so you just manage things?" With that particular tone people use when they don't understand that if no one just managed things, their whole world would fall apart. I'd shrug it off. Liam would squeeze my knee under the table and change the subject. I thought that meant he had my back. The night everything snapped started like any other Wednesday. I grabbed Ty on my way to his apartment, balancing plastic bags on my wrist while I nudged the door open with my hip. Liam had texted that he'd had a long day and wanted something low-key. When I walked in, the TV was on but muted, casting blue light across the living room. Liam was on the couch, hunched over his phone, scrolling. He looked up, gave me a quick smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and went back to whatever he was reading. "Hey, I brought pad thai and that curry you like," I said, kicking off my shoes. Thanks," he answered, still staring at his screen. I unpacked the food, arranged it on the coffee table, grabbed plates. We started eating, or at least I did. Liam picked at his food, thumb flicking over his phone every few seconds. His responses to my small talk were clipped, absent. "Yeah." "Uh-huh." "Cool." Finally, I set my fork down. "Okay, what's going on?" He kept his eyes low, his jaw tightening. "Nothing. I just had lunch with the guys today. Long day. I'm tired." "Liam," I leaned forward slightly. "That's not a nothing face." He sighed, tossed his phone on the couch, then rubbed a hand over his mouth like he was bracing himself. "They were asking about the wedding, about you, about our future." Something cold brushed the back of my neck. "Okay, and?" He hesitated just long enough to make my stomach knot. "They just asked questions. What you do, what your family's like, what kind of life we're going to have. Stuff like that." "That's normal," I said slowly. "What does any of that have to do with you acting like your phone is more interesting than your fiancé?" He flinched at the word fiancé, and I felt my heartbeat spike. "Brenna, can you not make this harder?" he said softly. "I'm trying to be honest with you." The word honest landed heavy. I sat back. "Then be honest." He stared past me, somewhere over my shoulder. "They think I'm selling myself short." Silence stretched between us. The muted TV flickered. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's door slammed. "Selling yourself short how?" I asked, each word measured. He exhaled in a rush. "They think I could be with someone more impressive, that I should aim higher, that you're not as ambitious as I could be, and long-term we're not compatible." There it was. I felt my face go hot and numb at the same time. "So your friends," I said carefully, "think you're settling by marrying me." He winced. "They didn't say it exactly like that. They're just worried I'm thinking too small. They know what I want out of life. First-class travel, a really nice house in a good neighborhood, private schools for our kids, networking with people who can open doors. They just don't see how we get there if you're content where you are. It took me a second to find my voice. I make good money, Liam. We've talked about budgets, about the life we can actually afford. You've never acted like that was a problem. I know, he said quickly. And you do fine, Brenna. It's not that you're failing or anything. It's just, he shook his head. Talking to them, I realized maybe I haven't been pushing myself enough. Maybe I should be thinking bigger. Maybe we both should. I stared at him. Are you hearing yourself? You let your friends sit there and dissect whether I'm impressive enough for you, and instead of shutting it down, you agreed? I didn't say I agreed, he protested, but his voice lacked conviction. I said it made me think. I love you. I do. But I have to consider whether we're really aligned. Long term. You're comfortable, and I get that. But I want more. I don't want to spend my life watching every dollar in flying economy because your spreadsheet says it's smarter. The spreadsheet. The ballast. The thing that kept our future from floating into fantasy. Something inside me cracked, but it wasn't loud. It was a quiet, precise sound, like a hairline fracture in glass. So what exactly are you saying? I asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you and your friends decided I'm not good enough, and now you want me to argue my way back into being worthy of you. That's not fair, he said sharply. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about compatibility. No, I cut in. My voice surprised me by how steady it was. You want me to audition. To prove I'm ambitious enough, impressive enough, whatever enough for people who measure worth in airline seats and zip codes. He opened his mouth, closed it. Brenna, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, I said. I'm being clear. I set my hands flat on my knees so he wouldn't see them shake. If you think you can do better than me, if you think you should aim higher, then go ahead. I'm not going to sit here and compete with the hypothetical woman your friends think you deserve. His eyes widened. Wait, that's not what Are you breaking up with me? I'm ending an engagement with someone who just told me he's not sure I measure up, I replied. That's not a man I can walk down an aisle toward. He stared at me like I'd flipped the table without warning. You're overreacting. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather overreact now than underreact after we're married. I stood, grabbed my bag. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Brenna, can we? I'll drop the ring off tomorrow, I said, my voice suddenly small but still firm. You can tell your friends you're free to aim higher. I left his apartment without looking back. I made it to my car, closed the door, and just sat there, fingers clamped around the steering wheel, breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth until I could see straight. When I got home, I turned off all the lights and sat on my couch in the dark for almost 2 hours. The ring felt heavy on my finger. I slid it off and set it on the coffee table next to the remote and a half-burned candle. Then the part of me that lives in spreadsheets and timelines woke up. By midnight, I'd pulled out the wedding binder and my laptop. The venue, canceled. We lost the deposit, but I didn't care. The caterer, canceled. The photographer, canceled. I'd paid for most of it because my card has the points, I'd joked at the time. Now those points were buying my way out. The next morning, I took the ring back to the jeweler. There was a return policy, 90 days, with a restocking fee. I walked out with less than we'd paid, but more than nothing, holding a check that felt like a refund on a future I no longer wanted. In the parking lot, I texted Liam. Ring is returned. Vendors I booked are canceled. You're free to aim higher now. He called immediately. I watched his name light up my screen, then fade. He called again and again. 17 times that day. I didn't answer. I just went home, opened my spreadsheet, and started a new tab. There are some things you can't budget for, but you can at least decide what you're not willing to spend. The first week after I ended the engagement felt like walking through a house I used to live in after all the furniture had been moved out. Everything was technically still there. My job, my routines, my Sunday spreadsheet. But the air had changed. Liam called, texted, emailed. At first, the messages were confused. Can we talk? I think we both said things we didn't mean. I just want to clear this up. Then they shifted into wounded. I was just trying to be honest, Brenna. I didn't say I didn't love you. You're throwing away 4 years over one conversation? I didn't respond. I muted his notifications, then eventually blocked his number when my phone lit up nonstop at work and my coworkers started giving me side glances. Our mutual friends were split. Some sent careful, neutral messages. He told us you two are taking a break. You okay? Others were more direct. You did the right thing. That aim higher comment was a giant red flag. What I didn't know at first was what Liam was saying when I wasn't there to hear it. According to my friend Jake, who was close with one of Liam's buddies, Liam wasn't telling anyone the engagement was over. He was calling it a rough patch. He told people I was emotional, that I'd overreacted, that we were working things out. On his social media, nothing changed. He still posted old photos of us, still liked wedding inspo posts, still let his friends tag him in bachelor party jokes. He did not tell anyone that I'd returned the ring and canceled everything I'd booked. In his version, I was just having a moment, a blip, something for him to patiently wait out. I should have expected that. Liam never liked admitting when something was truly broken. He liked the idea that everything could be spun, reframed, rebranded. 2 weeks after I left his apartment, his bachelor weekend rolled around. I'd forgotten about it until Jake mentioned it offhand at lunch. So, the guys are still doing Nashville this weekend, right? I blinked at him. For what? He gave me a look. For the bachelor party. I stared. There is no wedding. Jake held up his hands. I know that. You know that. But apparently Liam told them you two are just taking space. He didn't cancel the trip. Said he needed it. I felt my jaw clench. Of course he did. I tried to file it under, not my problem. Let him have one last weekend with his friends. Let them drink overpriced cocktails and pretend everything was fine. I had bigger things to worry about, like reconfiguring my housing budget now that I wouldn't be splitting a mortgage with someone who resented my spreadsheets. By the time Friday night rolled around, I'd almost managed to push Nashville out of my mind. Saturday, I went to the gym, did laundry, meal prepped, normal tasks in a life that no longer had a countdown to a wedding date. I went to bed early with a book and left my phone on the nightstand, screen dimmed. When it started buzzing at 2:47 a.m., I thought I was dreaming. The vibration persisted, rattling faintly against the table. I groaned, rolled over, and squinted at the screen. Unknown number, area code I didn't recognize. Aww. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something, curiosity, dread, fate, made me swipe to answer. Hello? My voice came out hoarse. There was a rush of background noise on the other end. Music thumping, distant laughter, the high, sharp sound of someone yelling in a hallway, then a shaky inhale. Brenna, it's Jessica. I sat up so fast the room tilted. Jessica? Jessica was one of Liam's closest friends from college. She'd been his unofficial best woman in the wedding party, the one he called my ride or die PR brain. I liked her, mostly. She was sharp, funny, and one of the few in his circle who ever asked me real questions about my life. Now she sounded like she was trying not to choke on her own breath. Yeah, she sniffed. I'm, sorry for calling so late. Oh my God, I feel sick. I swung my legs out of bed, heart hammering. Jess, slow down. What's going on? We're in Nashville, she said. I could hear her moving, maybe stepping into a quieter hallway. For Liam's bachelor thing, Her voice hitched. He's passed out in the hotel room, but before that he said some things. About you, about the wedding, about what he's going to do. I can't... She broke off, a muffled sob crackling through the speaker. Jessica, I said, trying to keep my own voice steady. Take a breath. Tell me what happened. There was a rustle, the sound of her wiping her face. When she spoke again, her words were clearer, edged with outrage. He told us why you freaked out and ended things, she said, bitterness dripping from his phrasing. He told the story like you overreacted to him being honest about money and lifestyle. The guys laughed it off. But then he started talking about the wedding like it was still on, like you were just going to come around. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, like it was still on? He rebooked everything, Brenna, she said. The venue, the caterer, the decorator. He used his cards and his parents' money. He's been telling everyone that you're cooling off and that by the time the date rolls around, you'll show up because you won't want to embarrass yourself. I gripped the phone tighter. He did what? I didn't know about that part until tonight, she rushed on. We were at this bar, everyone was drunk, and someone made a joke about you pulling a runaway bride. Liam laughed and said, she won't. Brenna hates public scenes. She'll show up. She always does the responsible thing. Responsible, like showing up to a wedding I'd already canceled to save him from looking foolish. I felt something icy settle in my chest. Jess, I told him the engagement was over. I returned the ring. I canceled everything I booked. I know, her voice cracked again. That's why I'm calling, because what he said next... She broke off with a harsh breath. I can't let him do this to you. Do what? My mouth was dry. He said... She trailed off, then forced the words out. He said if you don't show up, he'll just tell everyone you were unstable, that you were controlling and emotionally abusive, and that he called the wedding off for his own mental health. He said no one will question it because he's the one people like, and his friends will back him up. For a moment, I couldn't process the words. The room went sharp around the edges, every shadow suddenly too defined. He said that, I repeated slowly. Yes, Jessica said, now openly crying. He said, if she doesn't show, I'll just tell everyone I dodged a bullet, that she was crazy controlling, messing with my head, and I finally got out. People will believe me. And some of the guys laughed like it was a joke, but I know Liam. The way he said it, he meant it. I pressed my free hand against my sternum, like I could physically hold my ribs together. False accusations weren't just gossip. In my world, corporate, methodical, reputation-based, they were grenades. And you all heard this? I asked, forcing my voice to stay level. Me and Melissa for sure, she said. She's here with me now. There was a muffled voice in the background, then Jessica added, she's just as freaked out. The others were drunk, but they heard enough. They were egging him on about owning the narrative and getting ahead of the story, like it was some PR campaign. Of course they were. The media guy and his friends turning my life into a brand crisis to manage. Why are you telling me this, Jess? I asked quietly. I mean, I'm glad you are, but why now? Because it crossed a line, she said immediately. Breaking up, being hurt, even rebooking the vendors, that's messed up. But this? Planning to ruin your reputation because you won't marry him? Her voice hardened. That's evil. You didn't deserve that. You were good to him. You always were. A bitter laugh escaped me. He didn't seem to think so when he decided he needed someone his friends found more impressive. I told him that was shallow and stupid, she said quickly. I told him I actually thought you were good for him. But he wouldn't listen. And now he's acting like he can bully you into the wedding, and if that fails, he'll nuke your name. I can't be part of that. There was a pause, then she added, lower, I should have called you sooner. I'm sorry I didn't say something when he first started spinning this narrative. You're calling now, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded calm. Too calm. That matters. I swallowed. Jess, can you get any of this in writing? Screenshots, group chats, anything? I think so, she said. He's been texting our group thread about how the wedding is still happening, about you coming around. I can scroll back and grab everything, and I'll write down what he said tonight while it's still fresh. Melissa will too. Do it, I said. The project manager in me kicked in, filing tasks. Save the screenshots. Send them to me. Don't confront him yet. Just document. Okay, she whispered. I'll send everything as soon as I can get somewhere quieter. Jessica, I added, the words catching in my throat. Thank you. I know this isn't easy. He's your friend. He was, she said softly. Right now, I don't know what he is, but I know what this is. Wrong. We hung up a minute later. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, phone still in my hand, listening to the faint hum of my apartment, the fridge cycling, the old pipes ticking in the walls. Normal sounds in a life that had just tilted on its axis. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was text after text from that same unknown number. Screenshots of group chat messages, Liam's words lit up in little gray bubbles. She'll come around. Brenna's stubborn, but she won't blow up her own wedding. She hates scenes. She'll show. She always does the right thing. Worst case, I'll just tell people I had to call it off because she was messing with my head. Everyone already thinks she's intense. Intense, controlling, abusive. I could see the trajectory, the way he'd spin ordinary boundaries into pathology. My lawyer's number wasn't in my contacts yet, but I knew I'd be finding one in the morning. I saved every screenshot, every message, every timestamp. Then I created a new folder on my desktop. Wedding documentation, I typed, the words looking surreal on the screen. People like Liam thought stories were just narratives to control. For them, truth was optional. For people like me, stories had consequences measured in HR meetings and performance reviews and quiet, closed doors. He wanted to own the narrative. I was going to make sure I owned the record. By sunrise, I'd slept maybe 20 minutes. Light, restless, the kind of sleep that isn't rest at all. I kept seeing the screenshots behind my eyes every time I drifted off. Liam's arrogant certainty, the way he treated my reputation like a disposable chess piece. The city was barely awake when I opened my laptop and started searching for attorneys. Not divorce lawyers, not mediators. Someone who understood defamation, reputational harm, false allegations, the kind of legal fallout that can swallow a woman whole, especially one in a corporate field where one whisper can close 10 doors. I found a firm downtown that opened at 8 a.m. and made myself wait until 8:05 before calling. Law offices of Donner and Vance, how can I help you? Hi, I said, keeping my voice level, even though my heart was climbing into my throat. I need to speak to someone about a potential defamation situation. Urgent. They transferred me to an attorney named Mark Ramsey, a man whose voice radiated calm competence. Ms. Calloway, he said after I laid out the situation, let's start with the basics. Has your ex made any public accusations yet? Posted anything? Said anything to your employer? No, I said, not yet. But he's planning to. He said it last night in front of multiple witnesses. And you have evidence? I have screenshots of him insisting our wedding is still happening after I canceled it. I have witnesses who heard him say he'll claim I was emotionally abusive if I don't go along with the wedding. And I have texts where he talks about controlling the narrative. There was a beat of silence on the line. That, he said, is enough to take seriously. He asked me to gather everything, screenshots, timestamps, witness statements. I told him Jessica and Melissa were both willing to write what they heard. He sounded relieved. This isn't just a breakup, he said. This is a premeditated attempt to manipulate public perception. If he follows through, it could absolutely damage your career. You're doing the right thing documenting this. Should I warn him? I asked. No, he said immediately. Do not contact him. Not directly, not through friends, not even through a third party. Maintain distance. If things escalate, you'll need a clean record of non-engagement. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Okay, what next? For now, he said, let his actions speak. If he makes any false allegations publicly or privately in a way that damages your reputation, we'll respond decisively. In the meantime, consider alerting his parents if they're reasonable people. Sometimes family intervention can prevent a situation like this from exploding. He paused, but only if you feel safe doing so. I do, I said. His parents are level-headed, mostly. Then that's your next step. I hung up, exhaled slowly, then stared at Liam's contact information still blocked on my phone. I scrolled to his parents' numbers, ones I rarely used. My thumb hovered over his father's. Mr. Patterson was a measured man, quiet, polite, the kind of person who bought extended warranties for appliances and meant well, even when he didn't know what to do. He'd always been kind to me. He asked about my job, remembered my mom's name, brought extra chairs when we hosted holiday dinners. He didn't deserve to be blindsided by the monster his son had become. I pressed call. He picked up on the third ring. Hello? Mr. Patterson, it's Brenna. His voice lifted with cautious warmth. Oh, Brenna. Good morning. Everything all right? No, I said quietly. It's not. I need to talk to you about something serious. He went silent, and in that silence I heard him shift into his father-in-problem-solving mode tone. Tell me. Liam and I aren't taking a break, I said. We're not working on things. I didn't just step back. We ended the engagement 3 weeks ago. Another silence. This one sharper. He told us you were both working through some conflict. There is nothing to work through, I said. He told me I wasn't impressive enough for him, that his friends think he can do better. I ended the engagement. I canceled everything I booked. I returned the ring. Mr. Patterson inhaled audibly. I see. That's not what he told us. I know, I said calmly, and that's why I'm calling. Because last night, at his bachelor trip in Nashville, he told his friends he's rebooked everything. That he's planning to show up at the venue and expects I'll come because I hate making scenes. And my voice faltered. Saying it out loud made it feel heavier, uglier. And he told them, I pushed on, that if I don't go along with the wedding, he'll tell people I was emotionally abusive, that he called it off to protect his mental health. He said his friends will back him up because they like him better. The air on the line felt cold. Brenna, he said slowly. Are you certain he said this? I have witnesses, I said. His friend Jessica called me at 2:47 this morning sobbing. She and Melissa both heard him. I have screenshots of him insisting the wedding is still happening. I have proof. I let the words settle. I wanted you to hear it from me, I continued, because this is dangerous, not just messy, dangerous. When Mr. Patterson finally spoke, his voice was thin with disbelief. Send me the screenshots. I sent everything. 10 minutes later, he called back. I spoke to Liam, he said, sounding defeated. He admits he's been in denial about the breakup. He claims he didn't mean what he said, that it was just drunk talk. With all due respect, I said, drunk talk is usually real thoughts without filters. I agree, he said immediately. And I'm not defending him. This is unacceptable. I'm getting him home from Nashville today. We're going to have a family conversation. And I will personally call every vendor to make sure everything is canceled. You have my word. The tension in my shoulders loosened an inch. Not relief, but acknowledgement. Thank you, I said softly. He hesitated. Then, with genuine sadness, Brenna, you've always been good to Liam. Whatever he's been telling himself, I'm sorry he treated you this way. You didn't deserve any of it. We hung up. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, exhaling slowly. My heart was beating in a strange, dislocated rhythm. For the first time since the engagement ended, I felt something close to safety. Not complete safety. Liam's words had carved out a shadow I wasn't sure would disappear anytime soon, but safety adjacent. Safety with a margin of error. Jessica texted me updates later that day. Jess, they're packing up to leave Nashville. His dad showed up. It's bad. Jess, he tried to say you overreacted. His dad shut him down. Hard. Jess, Melissa and I told the others what he said. The friend group is imploding. Jess, I'm so sorry, Brenna. I sat on my couch, legs pulled up under me, reading every message with a strange mix of gratitude and grief. It was surreal. Watching a life I had almost tied myself to collapse from a distance, like a building scheduled for demolition, the charges blowing in sequence. By evening, another message from Jessica. Jess, he's home. His parents are making him call vendors. They're furious. Jess, also, his best man is done with him. Said Liam lied to everyone. Piece by piece, the fantasy Liam constructed was unraveling. The optics he valued so dearly were slipping out of his hands. And I wasn't lifting a finger. I just documented. I just told the truth. That night, lying in bed, I realized something unsettling. If Jessica hadn't called me, if Melissa hadn't backed her up, if Liam's father hadn't believed the screenshots, I could have woken up one day to find myself painted as unstable, controlling, manipulative. A villain in a story I never wrote. The thought hollowed me out. But I also realized this. People think betrayals always come with shouting. They don't. Sometimes betrayal comes with a quiet dinner, a fork paused midair, and someone you love calmly saying, "You're not impressive enough." And sometimes survival comes from one 2 a.m. phone call. When Monday morning arrived, the world outside looked exactly the same. Commuters, buses, the usual hum of normal life. But something in me had shifted. I went to work because routine was the only thing that kept me from floating into the ceiling. I answered emails, updated timelines, reviewed a subcontractor's change order. If anyone noticed the tightness in my shoulders or the over-controlled evenness in my voice, they didn't comment. But every hour or so, my phone buzzed with an update from Jessica or a forwarded screenshot from Melissa. Jess. His parents confronted him again this morning. He tried to spin everything. But his mom heard the audio I recorded from last night. She's devastated. I hadn't asked for audio, but Jessica had grabbed a few seconds of Liam drunkenly rambling about controlling the story. The quality was terrible, but his meaning was unmistakable. Jess, they're making him delete all his social posts about the wedding. He's furious, but doing it. Melissa, he told the guys you misunderstood him about the abuse thing. No one's buying it. A slow implosion. A narrative collapsing under the weight of its own ego. By midday, another message came. This one from an unknown number that I stared at for a long moment before opening. It was from Liam's mother. Brenna, this is Diane. I just want you to know that I've seen the messages. I'm so sorry. You deserved better than this. If you need anything from us, please tell me. My vision blurred unexpectedly. Diane had always been gentle, kind, a woman who hugged with both arms, and always brought a second dessert to family gatherings just in case. The thought of her seeing what her son had said, what he had planned, what he was willing to risk on the altar of his pride, it twisted something deep in my chest. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself not to spill every emotion I'd been swallowing for 2 weeks. By the end of the day, Jessica sent one more update. Jess. His parents canceled the rebooked vendors for him. He tried to say you'd come around, and his dad literally said, "Son, she already left." I sat very still for a long time. There was something deeply surreal about watching people clean up messes I hadn't caused. Because I had left. I had walked out of that apartment, out of a future built on someone else's insecurities, and I had not looked back. But the mess he tried to create in my absence still found its way to my doorstep. 2 days later, a long email arrived from Liam. The subject line, I owe you an explanation. I didn't click it immediately. I let it sit in my inbox like a package that might contain a bomb. When I finally opened it, it was longer than some essays I'd written in college. He said he was sorry. He said he was confused. He said he'd been under pressure, feeling insecure, trying to impress people who had the wrong values. He said he never meant to hurt me. He said he didn't mean the things he said in Nashville. He said Jessica and Melissa misinterpreted his words. He said he loved me. He said he panicked. He said more words than I could process, paragraph after paragraph, trying to build a bridge back to a life I had already walked away from. Near the end, he wrote, I would never have actually lied about you being abusive. That was just stupid talk. I was drunk, I was venting, I was angry and embarrassed, and I said things I didn't mean. I paused at that line. He didn't say he wouldn't have done it. He said he wouldn't have actually done it. He said it was drunk talk. He said he didn't mean it. All words he would have asked me to accept at face value if we were still together. Words he expected to fix everything. He ended with, can we meet for coffee? Just for closure. I think we both need it. I stared at the message, felt nothing but a low, steady hum of clarity, and closed the email. I didn't respond. Closure wasn't something I owed him. Not after everything he'd said, not after what he'd planned. And honestly, I'd already closed the door the moment I handed the jeweler that ring box. Over the next week, I learned more details about the implosion of the friend group. Jessica kept me updated, sometimes sounding guilty, sometimes angry on my behalf. Jess, Melissa blocked him. So did Caden. Even Tyler said he's done. Jess, he tried to blame everything on you at first, saying you overreacted. But when they saw the messages, no one believed him. Then, Jess, his parents are making him go to therapy. Like real therapy, not the kind he brags about in interviews. They basically said they won't help him financially unless he actually attends. A part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt nothing at all. You can't feel vindicated over someone you don't trust anymore. Then one more message. Jess, he's asking around to see if you'll unblock him. I told him not to expect it. I didn't unblock him. Some choices don't get do-overs. A week after that, the fallout reached wider circles than I expected. People I hadn't heard from in months reached out with gentle, hesitant messages. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. I always thought he cared too much about optics. You made the right choice. One message came from his cousin, who I'd only met twice. I don't know if this helps, but I always thought he took you for granted. I'm glad you walked away. It did help, in a strange, quiet way. Not because I needed external validation, but because it showed how little Liam understood the truth he'd always feared. He wasn't the one people admired for his character. I was. He just never noticed. The wildest moment came 3 weeks later. I was at a coffee shop picking up my usual latte when someone said my name. I turned and saw Alyssa, one of Liam's friends from the lunch that had started everything. The one who'd pointed out that I wasn't ambitious enough for Liam. The one who'd bragged about her boyfriend's income while subtly asking if I ever felt limited by my job. She looked smaller now, like someone had let the air out of her perfect confidence. Brenna, she said quietly, can I talk to you for a second? I shouldn't have indulged her, but there was something earnest in her eyes, something that didn't match the smug person I remembered. So I nodded. She swallowed hard. I'm really sorry about what I said at that lunch. I didn't know it would actually matter. I raised an eyebrow. It mattered to Liam. I know, she whispered, and that's part of it. I think I fed into his insecurities. I was projecting my own crap. Everyone in that group gets so caught up in appearances and status, and I played into it. I shouldn't have. Silence stretched. She fidgeted with her purse strap. I didn't know about Nashville until afterward, she added. When I heard what he said he'd do to you, she winced. That's not who I want to be associated with. I studied her for a moment. The old Brenna, the one planning a wedding, might have tried to comfort her, might have brushed things off, or said it was fine. The new Brenna didn't. Thank you for saying that, I said simply. Relief flooded her face, like she'd been bracing for a slap. We parted ways without another word. I walked out with my coffee and didn't look back. When I got home, I sat on my couch and stared at the sunlight coming through the blinds. My apartment felt different now. Lighter. Less cluttered with anxiety I hadn't recognized until it was gone. The refunded ring money was sitting untouched in a savings account. Every time I thought about spending it, I paused. Maybe I'd use it for a solo trip somewhere I'd always wanted to go. Maybe I'd let it sit there and grow interest. Maybe it would become the first-line item in a future I built completely on my own terms. What mattered was this. I wasn't bitter anymore. Not angry. Not scared. Just free. Free in a way I hadn't expected. Free in a way that didn't feel triumphant or loud, just quietly right. Liam once said his friends thought he should aim higher, but the truth was simpler. He'd aimed outward, toward their opinions, not inward, toward the life we were building. And while he chased the illusion of something better, I realized the most important thing. I wasn't something you aim for. I was someone you either valued or lost. And he lost. And he lost. And he lost.